to Sinister Story Time with your friendly neighborhood 80s slasher librarian. Today's twisted tale is the continuation of Halloween: The Scream Factory, beginning with Chapter 13. Matt and Sally followed Lori and Jake back to the house. Lori had to squint to see through the white haze that had thickened even more since they were out earlier. Matt had his high beams on behind her, which only made it more difficult to see the road. Lori slowed down as she turned onto Old Ranch Road, remembering the accident again. Her vision was cut down to about 10 feet now. She creeped along at 25 miles an hour, gripping the steering wheel. Matt was obnoxiously honking his horn at her from behind. "I wish he would knock it off. The fog is too thick. I can't see anything," she exclaimed, anxious to get to Jake's house. You want me to drive?" Jake offered. "My parents would kill me if they found out I let someone else drive. Besides, we're almost there," she said. All of a sudden, the car came to a jarring stop, throwing Lori and Jake forward. Lori screamed as Matt's brakes screeched loudly from behind. The Jeep slid to a stop less than 2 feet behind her. Matt stuck his head out of the window and yelled angrily, "Hey, what's the deal, Lori?" Everything was dark. Total darkness. Thick, dark branches covered the windshield of her car. The tree! It was back on the road. Jake scrambled out of the car and gawked at the giant wall of pine before them. "Oh my God, someone pulled it back across the road?" he yelled. Lori was freaking out. Totally freaking out. They all got out of their cars and stood staring in horrified fascination at the tree. Sally huddled close to Matt. "I thought you guys said the police moved it to the side of the road." "They did, but it's back," Lori cried. Sally gasped. But who would—" Jake's face became pale. "Michael Myers," he whispered. Sally screamed. "Don't even say that, Jake! Don't even speak his name! What if he's out there right now and he hears us?" "Okay, just calm down, all of you," Matt ordered, his heart pounding with fear. "There's got to be a logical explanation for all of this." Matt heard his own voice, but the logical explanation didn't enter his brain. He looked forward, out at the forest, but he saw nothing but fog. Still, white fog. He kept telling himself, "Focus, Matt, focus." He pulled himself together mentally. "Right now, we need to move the tree out of the way. We can do it if we work together. Lori, go back your car off of the branches, please." "Let's just turn around and go back to town," Lori whined. Matt ignored her. "Come on, Lori, move your car." He was starting to feel pretty spooked himself. The fog felt as if it were closing in on them. Matt backed up his car onto the shoulder while Lori followed, the branches crackling as she crunched over them. The four of them grabbed the end of the tree and strained to drag it. Sally cried, "It's too heavy. Let's just turn around like Lori said." A rumbling filled the air and the ground seemed to vibrate. A pair of blinding lights filled the foggy road. A deafening horn blasted as an 18-wheeler barreled down the road toward them. Jake screamed, "Pull! Pull!" The horn blared again, the steel cab of the truck closing in on them. The tree still blocking the 2-lane road. The truck driver must have seen the tree blocking the road, but it was too late to stop. "Pull!" Using all their combined strength, they dragged the tree off the shoulder as the monstrous truck swept by, just inches from where they stood. The whooshing backdraft nearly knocked them over. They fell on the trunk of the tree, panting. It was dead silent, as if nothing had happened. Jake sighed. "Whoa, that was weird. Really weird. It's pretty early. You guys still want to come over? We've got some beer in the fridge." Matt stood up, brushing the pine needles off his pants. "Now you're talking. We could all use a cold one right about now," he said. Lori wasn't into drinking beer. In fact, she hated the bitter taste. But she certainly didn't want to be alone right now. No way. None of them wanted to be alone. Jake opened the front door and let everyone inside, turning on the lights as they walked through the big house, bigger than Lori remembered. Matt looked around, trying to take in all the unusual decor and antique furnishings. "Wow, this is some place you've got here, Jake. Are you rich or something? Jake flipped on the stereo system and slid in a hard rock CD. My parents do all right. They're always buying and selling rare antiques and art collections. But we're not millionaires or anything, he said. Killer sound system, Sally yelled, running her hand across one of the 4-foot-high speakers. Check this out, she said, opening the cabinet of a big screen TV. Matt stared in awe at the giant screen. You ever watch sports? He asked Jake. Yeah, a little. I mostly watch the big games, Jake said. Man, you could have some Super Bowl party at this place. Invite me over sometime, buddy. Jake nodded. Sure thing, anytime. Hey, who wants a beer? Me! Cried Matt and Sally at the same time. Lori followed Jake into the modern kitchen, with black-tiled floors and a matching black refrigerator. Sally and Matt went off exploring the unusual house. Lori leaned against the cold counter and smiled at Jake. Just a minute, he told her. He picked up the cordless phone from the counter and dialed the police department. After a minute or so, he set the phone back in its cradle. That's funny, he muttered. What's funny? Lori asked. The recording said that all circuits were busy. I'll try again. He said this, holding the phone on his shoulder as he opened the fridge. Lori helped Jake pour the beer into crystal glasses, which were the only ones she could find. He hung up the phone again, looking even more puzzled. It's still busy. This is weird. Lori held up a glass to the light. First class, she commented. Nah, those are just glasses. You're first class, he told her, smiling. She took a sip of beer and made a face. Can I have a soda instead? She asked. Jake grabbed a cola from a drawer in the fridge. Here you go, he said. Thanks, she said, peering out the kitchen window into the darkness. What happened out there tonight? She turned to Jake, who had joined her reflection in the glass, and she continued. I mean, trees can fall, but they don't get up and move. We know someone did it, but who? Why? Jake's expression became serious. You don't want to know what I'm thinking, he said. But she knew what he was thinking, as impossible as it seemed. She knew who he was talking about. Lori shuddered, turning away from the window. Oh, Jake, it can't be. It couldn't have been. She stopped herself before she said his name aloud. But the name repeated over and over in her mind. Michael Myers. The boogeyman never dies. Jake said nothing. What could he say or do? He touched her face gently. Don't worry, we're safe here. I won't let anything happen to you, I promise. He leaned down and kissed her softly. Lori wanted to think he was crazy for believing. But she knew he was not crazy. What if he was right? Jake placed the drinks on a tray and carried them out to the living room. Sally and Matt were curled up on the black leather couch, making themselves right at home. Jake set the tray on the table and threw a couple of logs onto the fireplace, then lit them with an old Zippo lighter. Jake joked, You're probably wondering why I called you all here this evening. Sally took a sip of the beer. Oh, brother, she said. Matt was thinking. No, it's good we're all here, together. We can go over the final plans for the party tomorrow night, he said. Lori sighed. Yeah, really, can you believe that it's here already? I don't even have my costume together yet. Sally smiled sexily. I'm going to be Cleopatra. She stretched out across the couch and cooed at Matt. Darling, please peel me another grape. Jake sat with his back against the fire. I'm all set. The guys in the band are coming over tomorrow, and we're going to load the equipment in my horse trailer. We'll do a quick sound check before everything gets there. And then, showtime. Wow, you have horses too? Sally asked, obviously impressed. The fire against Jake's back was getting unbearably hot. He pulled off his black sweater, revealing his tanned, muscular chest. Lori sucked in her breath, hoping no one noticed her gasp. But he looked so hot. Jake answered, Yeah, we've got a couple thoroughbreds, but they're training right now in Kentucky. We usually let them roam around on the property, out in the pasture here. Sally looked disappointed. Too bad, I love horses. Matt pointed. Yo, man, is that a tattoo? Lori and Sally dove in for a closer look as Jake showed them the small black symbol permanently carved into his back. Yeah, that's the yin and yang symbol. It represents the destinies of all living creatures, he explained. Yin is dark, sour, and negative, representing evil, and yang is positive, bright, and sweet, representing pure goodness and light. The two balance each other, side by side, but they can't come together. Pure evil can never mix with pure goodness. Lori nodded. Yeah, it's like sweet and sour pork. You can taste both the sweet and the sour, but they don't really go together. You always taste either the sugar or the salt, if you really think about it. Well, that's one way to put it, I guess, Jake said. Sally looked confused. So what about the pork? What does it stand for? She asked. Lori was always having to explain things to Sally. She sighed impatiently. The pork doesn't mean anything, Sal. I was just using it as an example. That's not necessarily true, Jake said. The pork could be neutral, neither sweet nor salty. It's kind of like the earth, you know? You can have good guys and bad guys living together on the same planet, but they can never come together as one. That's why we have wars. Oh, I get it, Sally said. So which one is stronger, good or bad? Jake gave it some thought. Well, the way I see it, they're equal. Neither is stronger than the other. But only a small percentage of people are truly one side of the force or the other. You could say there's a lot of pork on this planet that's just flavored or influenced by one or the other, he said, laughing at his analogy. Did it hurt? Matt asked, inching closer to look at the drawing. If you consider someone drawing on you with a razor blade to be painful, then yes, Jake said, smiling. Matt laughed. He was really starting to enjoy the evening. It was such a change of pace from hanging out with his football buddies who crushed beer cans on their foreheads for entertainment. He was actually taking part in an intelligent conversation. You're really into all that philosophy stuff, aren't you? Matt asked. You've got to believe in something, Jake said. I read a lot. My parents bring me books and religious artifacts from all over the world. I can't get enough of it. It's like searching for the answers. Matt was intrigued. He could feel the warmth of the fire as he sat down on the living room floor. So, what's the meaning of life there? He asked. Jake shrugged. Who knows? I haven't figured it out. I don't think anyone has. Lori brushed her fingers across the tattoo on Jake's soft, perfect skin. She felt herself becoming more infatuated with him as each moment passed. He was so deliciously mysterious, she thought. Jake's body became electrified as she touched his bare skin. Sally watched longingly as Jake stared deeply into Lori's eyes. Jake was so intense, so mature, she thought. She sat up on the overstuffed couch, remembering her own special plan for the evening. Sally cleared her throat to get Jake's attention. Hey, Jake, can we go in your jacuzzi? I noticed it earlier when we were walking around out there. Jake nodded, still looking at Lori. Sure, go on. You guys have fun. The towels are in the guest bathroom. Sally squealed and grabbed Matt's hand. Come on, let's go for a little dip. Matt looked a little surprised as Sally led him down the narrow hall toward the back deck. But we don't have our bathing suits, he said awkwardly. Sally just giggled, so he eagerly followed, willing to experience whatever it was she had in mind. Okay, he exclaimed, his hormones raging. Jake pulled out the hard rock disc and replaced it with an industrial dance CD. He turned up the volume and asked Lori, You feel like dancing? More than ever, she said breathlessly. The strange music vibrated through the house. Jake dimmed the lights and pulled her close to his chest, his bare skin pressing against her body. They moved their feet to the fast beat of the song. The electric synthesized music pumped hard. Her heart pumped even harder. Jake was a great dancer, Lori thought. Chapter 14. Sally grabbed a couple of fluffy mint green towels from the bathroom while Matt pulled the cover off the jacuzzi. Hot steam billowed up from the bubbling water. Sally peered through the window at Lori and Jake, who were dancing in the living room. The wild music blasted throughout the house. It was even pretty loud outside. Sally smiled sexily at Matt as he peeled off his shirt and jeans and stepped into the hot water. Oh, this is perfect. The water, the music, you, he said. Sally licked her lips as she stared at Matt's bare chest. She unbuttoned her blouse and slipped off her skirt, leaving only her underwear on. She covered herself with the towel and tossed it aside, just as she sunk into the water, the bubbles coming up to her neck. She touched his knee playfully with her toes. "Tonight," she whispered. "I'm ready, Matt." Matt groaned as he pulled her into his arms. His mind went wild with excitement. He raised his arms and looked up at the sky. "There is a God!" he exclaimed. After a few songs, Lori and Jake collapsed on the leather couch. Jake peeked outside, where he caught a glimpse of Matt and Sally, kissing passionately in the hot tub, their arms entangled around each other. He laughed. "Looks like they're going for it out there." Lori sat up, giggling. "I figured they would sooner or later. They've been going at it for a long time." "You mean this is their first time?" he asked. Lori blushed a little. "Yeah, I think so." Jake pulled Lori on top of him across the couch. His body felt so strong and hard. He stroked her soft hair and untied the red ribbons. Her long hair fell down as she leaned forward to kiss him. He whispered, "So how long are we going to wait?" Lori groaned as Jake's warm hands pulled her face to his. "I don't know. Let's talk about it later." She kissed him as her body flooded over with new, exciting sensations. Matt breathed heavily as he struggled to unhook Sally's bra. He couldn't believe what was about to happen. He'd waited so long for this very moment. He'd dreamed about it. A lot. Sally waited patiently as he struggled with the skimpy garment. She kissed his ear, making his whole body shiver. Suddenly the sky lit up like broad daylight all across the property. A deafening siren began screaming. Sally and Matt jumped out of the jacuzzi and quickly tried to dry off. "What's going on?" she screamed. "I don't know," Matt said. Jake leaped off the couch. "It's the alarm. Someone broke through the perimeter. It goes off when the fences are touched. My parents installed it to protect the racehorses. Lori, go tell Matt and Sally to get inside now." Jake ran into the kitchen and picked up the telephone. He dialed the police department. Lori did as she was told, feeling totally confused. She yelled over the wailing sirens at Matt and Sally, who were comically struggling to put on their clothes over their wet underwear. "Come inside, you guys," she hollered. Jake held the phone on his shoulder as he punched some buttons in a black box on the wall. The sirens stopped. Matt and Sally burst in the back door, their eyes wide with shock. Matt's heart was pounding heavily. "What was that? What's going on?" he huffed. Jake was talking on the phone, still punching the beeping buttons of the alarm system. Lori turned off the stereo and took a deep breath. "It was the outside alarm system, to protect the horses." Sally pushed her wet hair off her face. "But he said the horses weren't—" Jake returned to the living room and threw the phone on the table. "I just reached the police department. They said we should leave the house right now. They're on their way over, but they said we might be in danger." Lori cried. "They said to leave? Oh my God, this is so scary." Jake ran and locked the back door, grabbing his sweater from the floor. "Let's go!" he shouted. On the porch, Matt helped Jake lock the door. "You can stay at my house, Jake." "Thanks, man," Jake told him as he pulled the key from the lock. He took one last glance at the pasture, which was lit up like a baseball stadium. Matt followed Jake's eyes beyond the white fences. He didn't see anything out there. "Jake, let's go, man," he said, tugging at his arm. Sally stood by the Jeep, shivering from the cold and fear. "Hurry up, Matt, come on!" she screamed. "Go in Lori's car, Sally. We'll follow you home. Jake's coming with me," Matt yelled. Lori started her car and sped down the driveway. Matt and Jake followed close behind in the Jeep. The fog had lifted a little. At least Lori could see the road now. Her stomach tightened into knots as they passed the Myers house. Sally squeezed her eyes shut and said a little prayer, shivering in her cold, damp clothes. On Old Ranch Road, Lori saw the tree coming into view, still lying on the side of the road. She pressed her foot on the gas and kept it there until they got back into town. Matt's Jeep was still behind them. A police squad car raced down Main Street, going the opposite direction. Lori sighed a little breath of relief as she swung the car into Sally's driveway. Matt pulled over to make sure she got inside safely. Sally gave them a little wave and disappeared into the house. Matt and Jake followed Lori back to her house and watched her garage door close before they left. Wow, that was intense. So do you think someone's trying to rob your house? Matt said. Jake still clutched Lori's ribbon in his hand. I don't know. One time a deer set it off, but with all the weird stuff going on lately, I'm not even sure. Matt pumped him for more information, trying to make logical sense out of the bizarre occurrences. What did the cops say? Why did they want us to leave? Jake yawned. He was tired despite all of the action. They didn't say why. They just told me to get out of the house immediately. Matt slapped Jake's shoulder. Well, they better have a good reason. I almost made it with Sally. Talk about bad timing, man. Jake sighed, thinking about what might have happened with Lori if the alarm hadn't gone off. Yeah, I know what you mean, man. Maybe it was going too fast, Jake thought. Matt pulled the Jeep up by the curb and put it in park in front of his medium-sized white house. A police patrol car rounded the corner with its headlights off. The driver flashed a bright light in their faces. Hey, wait! Matt called, waving his arms. The patrol car kept driving down the street. Jake shrugged. They probably followed us here to make sure we arrived all right. Yeah, whatever, Matt said. Chapter 15. Halloween Day. The school cafeteria buzzed with excitement. Everyone was caught up in the spirit of Halloween, still talking about what they were going to dress up as. The cafeteria cook had even dyed the mashed potatoes orange. Sally and Matt sat at a plastic table by the cafeteria window. Matt poked at his meatloaf and potatoes. I can't believe you talked me into eating here. The food is disgusting. We should have gone to Jumbo Burger. I told you we have to wait for Lori, Sally said. So eat your food like a good little boy, and we'll take off in a minute. I hope she was able to get permission to miss 5th and 6th period. Lori opened the glass door and spotted Matt and Sally. A group of football players groaned longingly as she walked by wearing a black lycra bodysuit with a short denim jacket. Lori felt liberated and free today, ready to face the future, no matter what it held. Lori waved her pink permission slip at Sally, smiling. Hi guys, we're out of here. We should have just ditched, Matt mumbled, tossing his plate of food in the trash. Lori looked around. Have you guys seen Jake today? I've looked everywhere, she said. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, Matt said. I dropped him off at his place this morning so he could load up his sound equipment. He's probably down at City Hall right now testing it out. Matt fumbled through his pockets and pulled out a piece of paper. He told me to give this to you, Lori. He said you'd know what to do with it. It was Marcia's check. Lori giggled. Great. What am I supposed to do with this? Matt shrugged. You figure it out. I'll go pull the car around in front of the school and pick you guys up in 10 minutes. I got here late and had to park way out in the boonies. A couple of cheerleaders bounded over to Lori and Sally as they were about to leave the cafeteria. The one with the mane of dark, curly hair asked, Is the party still on or what? We've heard a rumor that your band is playing at Marcia's instead and that the whole haunted house thing has been called off. That's what she's been telling everyone. Lori assured them. That's why they're called rumors. The Scream Factory is on and the band is playing. The cheerleader tossed her hair back. Like, great. We'll be there. Just wanted to make sure. Sally's blood had nearly reached the boiling point as she forced her hand to give a little wave to the cheerleaders, who bounced off discussing their costumes. How dare Marcia try to sabotage the party after all of their hard work? Sally pointed. Over there, look. Lori turned around. The glass door swung open dangerously with a crash as Marcia and 3 of her friends walked in as if they owned the whole place. A group of freshmen scrambled back from the floor by the door, hastily moving their books and lunches out of Marcia's path. Her calculating eyes scanned the room, stopping on Sally. Her deep red lips mouthed the word, loser. Something in Lori snapped. She couldn't, no, she wouldn't put up with Marcia's shit anymore. Without thinking, she jumped up on one of the cafeteria tables and waved her arms. What are you doing? Are you crazy? Sally screamed. Everyone was staring. Everyone. Lori continued banging 2 lunch trays together. Can I have your attention, please? She yelled. The room instantly went dead silent as all of the students watched. Their mouths hung open in shock. Lori cleared her throat, forcing her voice to be steady. Thank you. In case you were wondering where the happening party is tonight, it's at City Hall. You may have heard rumors that it's been canceled or that the band is playing another party. I'm here to tell you that the band is playing and the party is on. The football players who had been watching Lori earlier began clapping and hooting until the rest of the crowd joined in. We'll see you all tonight at the Scream Factory. Marcia stared in total horror as Sally jumped up on the table with Lori. Sally added, her voice almost too loud. While I have your attention, I'd like to take this opportunity to present the Bonehead of the Year award. The crowd screamed with laughter. Sally continued over the rumble. Lori, may I have the envelope, please? The kids began drumming on the cafeteria tables. Sally turned around to face Marcia, who was frozen in shock. Her friends had ducked into the bathroom, leaving her standing there all alone. With a sweeping game show hostess gesture, Lori handed Sally the check that Marcia had written to Jake. Sally held it up for all to see. She explained, This is a check written by a certain someone who tried to pay off our band to play at her private party, depriving all of you, the people, of an awesome free concert. Sally pointed at Marcia. And this year's Bonehead of the Year award goes to Marcia Miller. Let's give her a hand. The kids booed and hissed as Marcia's eyes frantically searched for a way to escape the humiliating scene. Sally tore the check into tiny bits and let them flutter to the ground. Marcia was horrified by the taunting jeers from the crowd. Her mortified expression turned to pure evil. She hurled her salad at Sally. It whizzed by Lori and hit a girl at the next table squarely in the face. Low cow ranch dressing dripped from the girl's glasses. Howls of laughter echoed throughout the room. Someone screamed, Food fight! Marcia sneered, baring her teeth. I'm going to kill you, you little... Before she could finish her obscene sentence, a chocolate milkshake exploded against her dress. She screamed and went running into the bathroom. Lori gave Sally a high five as they jumped off the table to escape the storm of mashed potato globs and sandwiches that flew from every corner of the room. Chapter 16. Sally, Matt, and Lori lugged several large shopping bags full of candy, fruit punch, and paper cups through the entrance of City Hall. The old woman behind the desk pointed proudly at about 20 carved jack-o'-lanterns that sat around the floor of the lobby. She smiled. I carved them myself, she said. Thanks, Lori said. They look great. I'll help you kids set up the refreshment tables, the old woman offered. I know you've got lots to do before the party begins. A loud electrical sound boomed throughout the lobby. The old woman clasped her hands over her ears. Ooh, I can't stand that noise that you kids call music. Lori laughed, realizing that Jake was in the basement with the band. Thanks a lot for your help, she called. The basement had been completely transformed. Spider webs and horrible-looking monsters filled every corner of Matt's brilliantly designed maze. Jake must have finished it up this morning, Lori thought. A strobe light flickered and smoke poured out of a fog machine that was tucked beneath 2 filing cabinets. Lori, Matt, and Sally smiled at one another as they traveled through their finished maze towards the pumping music that kept starting and stopping from the back of the basement. They spilled out at the end of the maze into a large cleared area, designated to be the giant dance floor, right in front of the band. Inside the storage cage, Jake was talking to a lanky young guy with a long black ponytail about the song lineup, which they had written on a sheet of paper. A black curtain hung across the back of the chicken wire storage cage. The guy sitting behind the drum set with the short blonde flat top twirled a drumstick skillfully in his fingers while the chubby bass player plucked a few deep chords. Jake looked up from the sheet of paper and swung open the cage door to greet Lori. His white t-shirt was damp with sweat. Lori gave him a kiss. Wow, this place looks awesome, Jake. Jake turned to his band members. Yeah, thank these guys. After we set up the stage, they helped me finish decorating the rest of the place. The 3 guys in the cage nodded and went back to their discussion of the song lineup. Mayor Jameson appeared from the end of the maze as the kids chatted. Looking good, he exclaimed. You kids have done a fantastic job. Fantastic! Sally smiled proudly as she fished the petty cash envelope from one of the plastic bags and placed it in the mayor's chunky hand. Here you go. On time and under budget. There's still $40 left over. The mayor pumped her hand. Well done. You kids just keep the leftover money. I really appreciate your hard work and for coming through on this project, he said. His eyes darted nervously around the room. Do you think all the teenagers in town will come? Matt stepped forward. Everyone at Haddonfield High will be here. It's the talk of the school, man. There's never been such a big Halloween bash in this town ever, he said. Something the mayor thought of sent chills down his spine. He shivered as a few beads of sweat formed on his balding head. Halloween, he said, looking at the kids, trying to smile. He forced a laugh. This time of year just makes me a little nervous. You know, all the crazies come out. He loosened his tie. Don't worry, Sally assured him. We won't let anything happen to the files down here. The mayor whispered to himself. It's not the files I'm worried about. He looked at the kids. Okay, I'll check in with you guys later. Lori watched the mayor duck under a fake cobweb and walk back into the maze. She whispered to Jake. Something's wrong with him. He seems really upset. I'm going to see if I can find out what's really going on. Matt had begun unfolding some card tables at the edge of the dance floor. Sally, he called. Come help me, babe. Sally joined Matt as they set up candy, cookies, and punch at the tables. Jake's drummer shouted. Come on, Jake. We need to rehearse the set, man. Jake squeezed Lori's hand. I've got to go. I'll see you later, okay? Lori silently disappeared through the maze. She caught up with the mayor and tiptoed a few paces behind him all the way up to his second-floor office. He fumbled through his suit pockets, fished out a large ring of keys, and opened his office door, unaware that he was being followed. Just before his door closed, Lori stopped it with her hand and slipped inside. She crouched down behind the mini refrigerator in his office. The mayor nodded to Police Chief Grandy, who was sitting before his cherrywood desk. The door clicked shut behind Lori. It was too late to leave now. She was frozen in place, afraid that she'd be caught. Mayor Jameson sat down, rubbing his hands together nervously. Things are under control in the basement. I do want extra police security over here tonight. Did you make any arrests yet? He asked anxiously. Randy rubbed his temples, exposed by a receding hairline. Not yet, he said. We found the abandoned squad car early this morning on the north side of town. His expression became twisted in disgust. We found Officer Baker's body a few hours later in the woods. Grandy looked as if he were going to be sick. He was hacked to pieces, he whispered. He paused for a moment as a wave of grief and fear washed over him. Michael Myers is back. He's back? Lori's stomach knotted up. The mayor's voice boomed. You crazy son of a... That boy's long dead. You need to lay off the booze, old pal. Chief Grandy nodded, his expression eerily serious. I've seen his work before too many times, and you know it. He paused and drew in a long breath. We've either got the real thing on our hands or one hell of a copycat. Mayor Jameson mopped his forehead with his sleeve. He slammed his fist on the desk. I don't care if you've got Charlie Manson out there. I want a head on a platter. We can't afford to lose anyone else to this psychopath. Grandy shifted nervously in his seat. All units are on the case. I'm considering calling a citywide curfew tonight. Vandalism reports have been flooding our switchboards. They're all the same. A jack-o'-lantern with a knife stabbed through. I think the killer is trying to warn us. No curfew, Jameson exclaimed. We can't panic people. Besides, the kids will be safe here, and you're not even sure what's going on out there. One dead cop and a bunch of freaking jack-o'-lanterns don't mean squat. It's taken me 10 long years to get this damn ghost town back on its feet after... Grandy stood to his feet and sighed heavily. All right, but if anything happens tonight, it's your funeral, he warned. I'm going to drive by the old Myers place to see if I can find anything. The mayor poured himself a glass of scotch with shaking hands. Lori carefully opened the door and slipped into the corridor before they noticed she'd been eavesdropping. The police car last night? The alarm at Jake's house? The tree. Michael Myers was trying to kill him. Lori almost tumbled down the basement stairs as she ran to find her friends. Sally! Matt! She called into the basement. The music drowned out her voice. She ran through the maze to the dance floor, where Jake and the band were rehearsing their new song. Jake, come here. Jake, please. The music halted and Jake stepped out of the storage cage. What's up, babe? He asked. Her eyes were filled with terror as she told him what she'd just overheard. Where are Sally and Matt? She asked anxiously. Jake put his hands on her shoulders. They just left to buy more candy. Are you sure the mayor wasn't just playing a joke on you? He didn't know I was in the room, she cried. Oh, Jake, what are we going to do? A twang of terror rippled through his body. He'd always sort of believed the stories, but not really accepted them, as he was now being forced to do. He pulled Lori to the side of the stage and wiped a tear from her eye. He steadied his voice. Listen, Lori, we'll be okay tonight, I promise you. There's safety in numbers. The whole school will be here. Lori looked into his eyes, thinking that he looked boyish and vulnerable right now. She could feel his fear. The spike-haired drummer tapped impatiently against his snare. Hey, Jake, he shouted. Come on, man. We haven't rehearsed in 2 weeks. Jake whispered. I gotta go now. Don't worry, we'll be fine. Lori grabbed onto his hand. But... The chubby bass player smirked as he sent out a subtle warning by playing the first verse of the funeral march. Jake repeated himself firmly. I've got to go, Lori. He shook his hand loose from hers. We'll talk about it later. Lori did not like being shoved aside, especially right now. What is it with the attitude, Jake? She shouted, startled by her own voice. We could be in serious danger, and all you care about is playing rock star. Her comment hit him like a kick in the crotch. She wished she could take it back. He stared at her coldly as his band members chuckled in the background. The drummer teased. You gonna let the groupie treat you like that, man? Yeah, really. Brenda would kick her skinny little butt if she heard anyone talking to you like that, chimed the lanky guitar player. Brenda? Who's Brenda? Lori demanded. In a sing-song voice, the drummer teased. She doesn't know about Brenda. Shut up, man, just shut up, Jake shouted. He felt like screaming. Lori was waiting for him to say something, anything. She stood with her hands on her hips. Anger flashed in her eyes. He faced Lori, his expression blank. She's no one, just a girl I know, he said. The guys burst into a fit of laughter at his explanation. The drummer was slapping his knee and laughing like a maniac. The guitar player threw back his long black hair. Maybe you'll find out who she is tonight, honey, he cracked. Jake's face turned crimson, and he wished he could have run out of the building. Oh, God, you didn't invite her, did you? The guitar player smirked. We didn't think you'd mind, Jakey Poo. You didn't tell us about your little sweetheart. Besides, you know how crazy Brenda is about you. The guys were giggling hysterically. Jake felt as if the room were closing in on him. This was the worst. The last thing he needed was for Lori and Brenda to be together in the same room. He hadn't told Lori about her, but then it never came up. He hardly even knew Lori. And Brenda, whew, she was something else, all right. He should have warned Lori. But things were going so good. Too good. What a total disaster. Lori choked back tears of humiliation. You'd better rehearse. But don't practice the selfish, vain rock star bit. You've already got it down, she said coldly and sobbing. And to think she'd thought they had something. Jake threw his hands up in the air as she stalked across the room. He called, Oh, come on, Lori. Don't listen to those jerks. They're just messing around. You've got the wrong idea, Lori, please. She did not turn around to look at him. Thanks a lot, you stupid assholes, he yelled at the guys. The drummer imitated Jake and whined. Lori, Lori, please come back. In a rage, Jake threw the microphone stand across the stage. The guys suddenly became serious and very quiet. Hey, man, we're just screwing around, the chubby bass player offered softly. Jake kicked at some imaginary dust on the stage floor with his black Doc Martens. Nobody understands me, he thought. Nobody. Everything I am, everything I do is misunderstood, he thought angrily. He picked up his microphone. Hit it, you freaking scumbags. The band went into a hard rock number. Jake screamed out the lyrics, venting his frustration and red-hot anger. Chapter 17. Matt and Sally walked through the parking lot. The October moon peeked out over the trees as the sun cast its last rays of daylight over Haddonfield. Sally read over the last-minute shopping list again. Okay, we still need 8 more bags of candy and 10 more cans of green fruit punch. The lemon-lime kind. If they don't have green, Matt finished her sentence. If they don't have green, get orange, he said, feeling a little annoyed. Sally wrapped her arms around his waist. Sorry, Matt, I'm just a little excited. I want to make sure everything is perfect and we're running out of time. Matt flashed a smile at her. Everything will be just fine. I'll go get the stuff, stop by my house so I can change into my costume, and be back at 6, okay? Something caught Matt's eye as they walked toward the Jeep. Something was wrong. Matt gasped. What the? Sally screamed. The vinyl windows of the Jeep had been slashed to ribbons. Matt went blind with anger as he stomped around the driver's side. He screamed out a long string of angry curses. The writing couldn't be missed. The word revenge was scratched across Matt's red paint job in huge scrawled letters. He let out another string of curses as Sally whimpered. Why? He screamed. Who the fuck would do this? Sally didn't say a word as she stared in horror. What could she say? There was no explanation for this. Poor Matt, she thought. He'd worked so hard to restore the Jeep. It had meant so much to him. All his hard work ruined, absolutely trashed. Before Matt could grab his keys, he noticed that the door lock had been pried off. He opened the door, and there on the passenger seat sat a jack-o'-lantern. The acrid, rotting smell invaded his nostrils. He glared at its grinning face as if it were laughing at him, laughing right in his face. In a burst of rage, Matt hurled the giant pumpkin across the parking lot and watched the pulpy orange burst as it exploded against the asphalt. Sally winced, looking away from the sickening mess. Marcia did this, she said. Matt whirled around. What is this hang-up you've got with Marcia? Marcia didn't do this. Are you crazy? Look at it. My car is trashed. Some total psycho did it. Sally was on the verge of tears. She'd never seen Matt so angry before, and he'd certainly never been angry at her. I'm telling you, it's just like what I found in my locker. I'm sure she did it, she declared. Matt really looked furious now. A large vein throbbed in his neck. He shouted, Since when do you know Marcia so well? How do I know it's not you who did this? Maybe you're trying to blame Marcia because you're jealous and you want to make me hate her. Matt's comment made Sally's temple pulse with anger. How dare he suggest that she was responsible? Sally threw her hands in the air. Had everyone gone insane? Oh, great. So now you're taking her side. This is just great. Thanks a lot, jerk. Maybe you should just go to her party tonight, Sally spat. Matt climbed into the Jeep and slammed the broken door, which flung right back open, only making him more mad. He slammed it again and punched the steering wheel. Maybe I will, he yelled. They glared at each other in silence for a moment. Matt punched his fist through the tattered plastic window and was quiet again. He looked at Sally, who was nearly in tears. Just get in, he said, starting to feel like a real jerk. No, she said and pouted. Not until you apologize. Fine, he shouted, the anger welling up inside. Be that way. Sally stomped her foot on the ground, totally frustrated. Fine, I will. Matt threw the pink duffel bag at her, the one that held Sally and Lori's Halloween costumes. His tires squealed as he screeched out of the parking lot, leaving Sally behind in a cloud of smoke. He wasn't quite sure where he was going or what he was going to do yet. He just needed some space. He needed to drive. Don't forget the candy, you jerk! Sally tried to yell as Matt disappeared down the road. She burst into tears. She thought, what a rotten night this was going to be. If only she knew. Not too far away, a dark shape watched everything. Okay, this has been chapters 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. Hope you guys are enjoying the story so far. I know there wasn't much Michael in tonight's chapters, but we're getting into the home stretch of the book now, and I think from here on out there's going to be quite a bit of the shape. So we'll see how it goes when I come back tomorrow. with the next installment of Halloween the Scream Factory. Well, that concludes Sinister Storytime for today. It's getting late, and the 80 Slasher Library is now closed. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here!